So for today's inspection, I'm going to put the camera in a different place. I might suit up more than I usually do because we just recently had a rain, and while it's not currently threatening to rain, it's still cloudy, occasionally a little gust of wind, and there may be more of them at home than there normally is, although I'm seeing a lot of them flying out. And they may be more defensive than they normally are because of the weather. So just wanted to catch a little bit of them at the hive. I did make one change this week. I used to have, so each of those metal discs is potentially an entrance. And I previously had the one on the lower left open as it currently is. And the other three I had on ventilation. And I've closed them off completely so that they're not used for ventilation right now. And the reason for doing that is that on the last inspection, out of 9 frames, I added 2 more subsequently, so now we're up to 11. But out of the 9 frames that were there, numbering from this near end of the box, the queen was on 7. And I'd been told that normally she lays her brood near the entrance. So I would have expected frames 1 through maybe 5 would be where she'd be keeping brood. And then they use the ones that are further away for honey storage. And so she was all the way down near the end. And I learned that that part of what makes them lay the brood near the end is the added ventilation. And so I closed it up so that there's still plenty of ventilation. It's just that it's only coming in through this one entrance on the bottom, rising through the hive, and then being expelled through those 4 screened vents on the top on this end, and there are 4 more on the other end. So that's how the air flows through the hive. And hopefully that will cause her to come back towards this end of the hive, and they'll then use the frames on the far end exclusively for honey. So that's the change, and I'm going to, on this inspection, I'm going to be checking to see if they still seem to have plenty of nectar and honey coming in, because we are approaching what we'll call the dearth, the summer dearth, meaning a time when there's not so many flowers, not so much nectar available, and things just slow down for the colony. So give me a moment. I'm going to put the camera on an old tractor here next to the hive. Try to position it and zoom it out so we got a better view. And when I see something of interest on a frame, I'll bring it over to the camera to show you. Okay, that should do. Now let me give them a little bit of smoke. Get this. All right, we'll give it a little bit through the vent holes. I may put on gear after I see what kind of mood they're in. Okay, that's a good start. We've got here an old antique tractor. Maybe I'll try to show you when I move the camera. All right. I'll take the lid. This is, I'm not sure this is normal. Haven't seen this before, but I have on the top and inside the lid some dead bees. And I see more than usual down there too. So I am a little bit concerned here. I know that a number of bees die every day and they're replaced by more. But I didn't expect to see them at that point in the hive. Now, since I don't know what I'm getting into, and I don't know what kind of mood they'll be in, I'm going to go ahead and suit up, at least with gloves and my hat and veil. I understand that eventually I'll be stung, but I'm not trying to experience that any sooner than I have to. Alright, so just to let you guys kind of see what we do here, I've got a hat with a veil around it, webbing that pulls it tight against the hat, and then it drops down. And what I'm going to do, it's not perfect. A bee could probably still eventually, if they were really determined, find a way inside, but I tuck the string in my shirt, I tuck the veil under my collar, just to make it a little easier, a little harder for them to get inside my veil to my face. The one place that's most vulnerable, assuming that you're not allergic, in which case any place is vulnerable, the one place that's most vulnerable on your body to a sting is around the eyes, and you get it in just the wrong place and you could lose your sight. So that's the first place that I'll protect. And then I protect my hands, just because that's what's in closest proximity with the bees. And so there we go, geared up. Now I think what I'm going to need to do is move these dead bees. There are, oh, you know what? I may know why they're there now that I think about it. There's normally, previously I had the feeder here, and so there was access from the frames through the holes that let them get to the feeder up to this space, and the undertaker bees could get up top and tidy up this space. I think what's happening, the worker bees can still get up here, but then for them to remove the dead bees from up here, they would have to take them back down, drag them under the divider board, and then out through the exit. So that's what's happened. I made it difficult for them to remove the dead bees. So when I put the hive back together, I'm going to make sure that I leave a little bit of space between the divider board and the frames, and that will let them tidy up the space more easily. All right. So the first frame that I'm going to pull is one that I just added. Let's see, my last inspection was on Sunday, and so I went back out Monday to add this frame, these next two frames. And it's interesting here, they appear to be held together. Yeah, okay, I was concerned that it might be comb, but it was just propolis that was holding them together. And this is a fresh frame. You've heard me talk about foundation. You may not have seen what foundation is. You can see how thin that is and how it's imprinted with the shape of honeycomb. And it's just a little wax flat layer for them to build on. They haven't started building on this frame yet, and that's okay. It's just there for their future growth. All right, and the same is true of this frame. It also is there for their future growth, and they're exploring it, but they're not really doing anything with it yet. So just put those both over here. All right, this is frame 9, and this is one that we saw in the last video. All the rest of them now are going to be frames that we have seen before. So we can go back and compare the shape that they were in last Sunday with how they look now. This is the one we called frame 9. All right, and on this side I believe we're just seeing nectar storage, and on this side we have capped honey at the top and nectar that's still drying at the bottom. Hope I'm positioning this well for the camera. Oh, and I see a hive beetle. He went to hide behind the divider board. I'm going to pull that out and crush the little sucker. There we go. I'm not going to fret over it over much because the bees will deal with them as long as they don't have too much space to care for. He has removed himself to parts unknown, and I don't see him. But if I see him again, I'm gonna squish him. That's what we do with hive beetles. If you have a weak colony, a colony that is sick with something, then they can, and the hive beetles can kind of overrun, and they'll start to lay their own eggs in the comb and eat the bee larvae. I think I need to look into them a little more. The main thing I've learned about them is that if your colony is healthy, you don't have to worry about them too much. All right, now I'm pulling frame 8. Now 8 all right, the bees are not seeming abnormally defensive, so I'm really having trouble seeing some of the things I want to see. So I'm going to take this off. Okay. Yep. Nectar and honey, capped honey at the top. I'll turn the frame here in just a moment. Same thing on this side. Some of the spots look like they once were used for brood, but I think They're now exclusively used for honey and nectar. I'll bring the frame over. So there's that side. So this tells me at least that one of the concerns I had was whether the summer dearth might be starting and whether I'd need to go back to feeding. And that they have this, that their resources are this plentiful, tells me that at least is not a need at the immediate time, in the near future. A little warm today and very muggy. Sweat's getting in my eyes. Now this is the one where we spotted the queen a week ago. So my first thing is going to be to look carefully so that if she is here, I know where she's here. I've got honey at the top and lots of brood in various stages. One other thing I've just learned to look for is signs in the brood that they have plenty of jelly, especially when they're young, that they're moist and shiny instead of dry, and it looks like that's the case here. I'm going to look on the back side. Once again, scan for the queen. Don't see the queen on this frame anymore. Honey and brood, and the brood seems to be well fed. So you notice the drastic difference between the number of bees that are on a resource comb and the number of bees that are on a brood comb. They cover the brood to keep them at the right temperature. Although these guys are covering the honey too. I think they're just, I wonder how many of these may be newly hatched. Now once again, paying attention to the direction that I took the frame out. Trying carefully not to squish any. All right, that was frame 7. All right, took a little walk to calm them down a little bit, and their agitation just earned them a little bit of smoke. Now with smoke, they'll fly a little more, but it interferes with their alarm pheromone. So they're agitated, but they're not targeting me. Maybe I ought to smoke myself as well. All right, back to business. Frame 6. All right, frame 6 has a lot of brood. Seems to be older brood. Also some brood cells that are now being used for nectar. And it's the same on both sides. And I don't see the queen on either side. So frame 6. frame 5. All right, I see drone brood here, and I see some worker brood that I wonder if it died from the cold. It's discolored in a way that I haven't seen often. But time will tell. If those brood cells are dead, the bees will recognize it and they'll clean it up. On this frame, I also see drone brood and worker brood and nectar and larvae. So as we look at this, you can see the brood that looks like little bullets on the right side. Those are the drone cells. The drones are bigger, and so they have to protrude out. And the caps that are flat or only slightly extended, those are worker brood. They're smaller and fit in the normal cells. We've got nectar at the top. And let me see, on the other side I saw larvae. I don't see a lot of, yeah, I do, larvae down on the left side near the bottom. Not sure how well that can be seen, but hopefully I'm getting in about the right area. There's some uncapped larvae there. And the larvae seems moist and therefore well fed. No sign of the queen on that frame. So by first impressions, assuming that she's on frames 1 to 4, changing the ventilation might have done exactly what I needed it to. Okay. And my smoke went out. Okay, now we're going to be looking at frame 4. Alright, frame 4 has, it's a second time brood frame. It has freshly laid eggs, so the queen has been here recently. It has larvae that's not capped yet. It has some capped brood. Again, I think it may be dead brood, and still has some resources on it. On the back side, you're seeing larvae, you're seeing eggs, capped brood, resources. So in the empty cells in the center are where brood is once hatched, and there's another generation of eggs laid in most of those. Down at the bottom is brood. Oh, look here. In this corner, I hope I'm positioning it so you can see, I see bees emerging. So that's not dead. I see one climbing out now. Boy, I hope I'm capturing this. You see one climbing out. Brand new bee. Happy birthday. There she goes. She's out. I should have checked for the queen before I moved it. There's always some slight chance that she could drop from the frame and you could lose a queen doing that carelessly like I did. I suspect I'm probably okay. That was fun to see a bee being birthed. Now that bee won't be able to fly for a little while, and I believe the way the life cycle works is they typically, when they're young and they can't fly, they become the nurse bees who will take care of the other brood. Alright, don't see the queen. Let's put this one back. Bees came out and gave me quite a little thump on the cheek. It wasn't a sting. It was basically saying, get back, get away. While I've got them smoked away, I can start to kind of close these up a little more. This is frame 3. Taking a quick look for the queen. Don't see her on that side. Don't see her on that side. Lots of brood. Plenty of resources. I don't think there's anything particularly noteworthy to bring to the camera on this one. So I'm just going to try to move a little quicker on these last ones. Two frames to go. This one is super heavy. This is frame 2. No sign of the queen on that side. I may have just missed her. She might have been on one of the earlier frames. But everything seemed... Oh! We have a waggle dance in progress. I'm going to try to show you on the camera. So there is a bee on the left side. You see her, she's got pollen on her legs. She's going in a pattern, circling around and wiggle, 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 and then she circles around and wiggle, 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 wiggle. And that's a code. See, now there are other bees following her to learn the pattern. She is telling them where she's found resources and how far they have to fly and in what direction. That's a waggle dance. Oh, I've got another interesting thing. Oh, there's the queen. I've got the queen, and I'm going to run the risk of carrying her over here. You can see the queen near the bottom, yellow dot on her back. And a few inches above that, you may see, we've got lots of pollen coming in on these bees. Most of them are yellow or orange. But there is one bee there, now it's up near the top on the left side here, that has white pollen on its legs. Don't know what that comes from, but there's some variety of plant out there with a white pollen. I saw something interesting in one of my beekeeping groups on Facebook. Somebody harvested honey here in Texas, out around Lubbock. And their honey came out almost entirely clear. They call it white honey. And they didn't think it was, they didn't think in this case that it was cotton, but cotton is one of the crops that will do that. The nectar they gather from cotton flowers comes out white. Okay, and they're agitated again. All right, last frame, frame number 1. It's another quite heavy frame. I see more white pollen, more orange pollen. More brood, more resources. See bee bread. Whoop. And I slipped and agitated them. And what's in my beard? Oh my goodness. Okay. They say handle with care, please. Now the problem is I can't both hold the frame and use smoke. So I've just got to put it down. Hope they'll be patient and understanding with me. All right. Thank you, bees. Even on a bad weather day, you're pretty patient with me. I say that, one of you gets all persistent. Now what I'd like to do is smoke them away from the frame so that I can reassemble everything. Okay, looks like I can safely close that. Okay, almost there. Just got to put 10 back. And then 11. Divider board, leaving a little opening so that the bees can more easily take care of business. Alright, hive tool back in the hive, smoker down, cover back on. All right, well, one more inspection, one more session working with the bees without a sting. I don't expect it to last forever, but I sure am thankful for such a docile hive that I can get away with this. By the way, that I do this without more protection is not to show off, and it's not to recommend to others that you do the same. It's just, I'm not intimidated by a single sting, and I haven't needed it, so that's my preferred way to work, as long as they are like they are. If they get more aggressive and I start taking stings, rest assured I'll be suiting up more completely. Thanks, guys.